Hey guys, welcome to the LT Brings the Heat podcast. We're your hosts, Sean Laird and Adam Heisler, where we talk about baseball and sports performance. With topics ranging from coaching, business, and player development, our goal is to bring you a no BS approach to development in baseball and sports performance. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's rock and roll. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of LT Brings the Heat. We got a super special episode today. We got two guests today. We've both had them on the podcast before. We got Britton, draft pick from this year's 2020 draft with the Blue Jays, and we got Zack Thompson we had earlier in the summer as well. I'm really excited about this podcast because obviously these guys are my guys that I used to coach back in the day, and I love following their careers. They're really good guys, and we had some things talking about before with the pitching side and the hitting side, and we're kind of approached today something that me and Adam were talking about. There's not really many opportunities for people to look into advisors and agents in the process for guys that are coming out of high school looking to turn professional, and obviously at the college level as well, looking to turn professional. So we're going to look to these guys today, kind of their experience and their expertise and how everything went down. Basically, the what, when, and why of advisors and agents, and kind of break down the process, what to look out for, because these guys have obviously had a lot of experience in this. But I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm excited. Britton, how you feeling today, buddy?
Good. I'm just happy to be on here. Kind of excited to talk about something that I haven't really had. Nobody ever told me about, and there's not really much to learn out there about advisors and agents, and unless you have someone like us. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Hell yeah, ZT, how you feeling today, man?
I'm doing good. Always good to see your pretty face.
But, yeah, baby.
Like he said, it's good to get on here and kind of help guys with something that's, it was kind of a challenge. And like he said, there's not very many resources out there, not very many people to really bounce ideas off of with advisors.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing is, like, I have every year with the Bulls, I'll have one or two guys that are asking me questions and stuff like that. And, I'll give them my answers based on my experience and stuff. But you guys have actually lived through it, specifically in the high school level and the college level. And I know Adam and I, when we were at South Alabama, like they would always, our coaches always say, like, hey, you don't need them. You don't need to worry about it going through the draft and everything. So we definitely want to hear your experience on things. And for the guys that are listening right now, since Zach, the Zacks have the same name, I'm going to yell Britton and ZT. So everybody's on the same page with what's going on. But Britton, I'm going to start with you, buddy. And ZT, you just follow up on the answer. But when you were going through the high school process, and obviously you were highly recruited, committed to Louisville as a freshman really early, tools coming out, 5 tools, just, killing it. Kind of walk us through the process of when you kind of got approached with an advisor or kind of got approached, like how you should go about your process and maybe possibly going pro out of high school.
Yeah. So I think I first got contacted by an advisor when I was like 15. It was like sketchy too, because it was like an email. And like you could tell it was like templated to like send to like probably hundreds of kids. And he was like saying like, hey, I'd like to come meet you and talk to you like over dinner and tell you what I do and the benefits of my company and all this. And I don't think I ever ended up meeting with him. But probably my sophomore year, all through my sophomore year, there were guys calling me, emailing me, trying to meet. And I was with ProStar Management in high school, and really liked like their recruiting guy, guy who kind of did all the recruiting for him and like found guys to bring into the company. Really liked him, and he had a building that like he did lessons out of, because he wasn't technically an agent when I met him. He just worked for them and kind of was their guy who, went out and watched guys and kind of was like their middleman. And really liked him, and that's who I decided to go with. And then kind of after high school, they split up, and I followed him to a new company. So.
Awesome. ZT, what you got, man? How was kind of your process and kind of how you were approached? Because I know obviously big arm, coming out of high school, and we kind of touched on it a little bit before we hopped on here, but kind of walk us through your process.
Yeah, it was pretty weird. Early on in high school, I didn't really have any plans of going on to play baseball after that. And then sophomore year, I started throwing hard, and these advisors started showing up. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, I hadn't even been recruited at this point. It was kind of weird. Luckily, I had some guys. I wasn't in the Bulls yet, but I did have a few guys close to me that had been around pro ball and kind of helped me through that a little bit. And really, I think the whole advisor process was a little more difficult than the school process. And I actually ended up with an advisor before I ever committed to Kentucky. He actually helped with that. He helped kind of bounce ideas. I mean, he had guys with various schools that I was looking at, so it was nice to be able to bounce some of the college stuff off of him. But even after picking an advisor, they don't stop. They're like sharks. I mean, I already had one. They all knew I had one, and I'm still getting calls and emails and, hey, if you ever change your mind. And so it's a different world with agents.
Hey, ZT, so both you guys, it sounds like you were around 15 years old when you first got approached by advisors. What was the big reasoning, I guess, why you chose the guy that you chose? And then Britton, kind of follow up with kind of the reason you chose your guy as well.
For me, I mean, like we talked about last time I was on about the whole blue collar atmosphere at Kentucky. I kind of got that like blue collar personalized feel with my advisor. You know, there were some guys that had big names, but they always wanted to tell me about, oh, well, this guy's doing this. This guy signed this contract. My guy's doing this. It's like, dude, I don't care. Like, what are you going to do for me? And my guy, really, I mean, I don't even know who he has. I know he's got some big guys, but he doesn't talk to me about them. I mean, when we talk, it's all about me. It's whatever I've got going on. I mean, he's got connections, and he'll say, well, with this organization, they're doing this, and this for their throwing program. Maybe we try mixing that in, but it's not, hey, my guy Verlander just signed this massive deal, and, you know, here's what he's doing because he's the best and I'm his guy kind of thing. So just that kind of that personalized feel with my guy is what really kind of drew me to him.
Nice. Britton, what about yourself?
I would kind of say the same thing. There was, like he said, there's a lot of big agencies out there that were contacting me, and the first thing they wanted to talk about was how much money their guys signed for and how many first round picks they had in the last 5 years. And that's all good. And I mean, it obviously speaks to the resources that company might have, but if somebody's willing to talk to you about other guys and how much their other clients have signed for, who are they going to be worried about? Are they going to be worried about you? Or are they going to be worried about where their money comes from? So I would say the biggest thing is find somebody that you really can trust and really like, and like someone you feel that'll fight for you. Because those big companies that are, you know, talking about their number one overall picks, or they just made $10 million in this draft, like, they're not going to be worried about, you know, kids from small town high school in Indiana. So the biggest thing is just find somebody who you trust and you feel like will fight for you.
Yeah, that's great advice, because, you know, you don't want to be another spoke on a wheel. And there's a lot of guys that, you know, and we know, like, there's certain type of guys that do things for clout. They want the cash in their wallet. And if they got to step over you to do it, they're going to do it. And we all know that it's the real world. And, you know, unfortunately, I would say probably the majority of people are like that when it comes to money. But for the listeners that are kind of new to this situation, I'll start with you, ZT. Can you break down the difference between the advisor and the agent in the high school process? Because I know some guys get confused in understanding, you know, how to maintain the amateur status. What were some of the things that were taught to you and kind of approached you to, hey, make sure that you're doing things the right way? This is how an advisor works versus an agent and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a little while and I'm a little blurry on the exact rules, so I don't want to swear by anything, but I know, I mean, you can't pay them for anything. They can't be buying you dinner or any of that. None of the illegal shit that's going to ruin your amateurism. So there's some of them that'll do that. Stay away from those guys that are, oh, I'll buy you dinner. I'm going to take you to a steakhouse. I'm going to buy you dinner, all this. And you need to sign this contract, because they can't do that. You know, it's kind of it's a gentleman's agreement until you sign. You're just kind of saying, hey, I'm not going to ditch you after we work together. I think they actually can't even negotiate for you technically.
Yep.
But it's kind of a shady business, but I mean, that's how it works. You can't just go into the draft blind. It's good to have a guy.
Absolutely. Britton, we'll kind of break down your little thought process on it, make sure guys that are kind of listening to this, because obviously, like, guys don't want to ruin their amateur status. And just like, ZT said, guys are trying, they'll try to hook you line and sink and get you down and then get you stuck with them.
Blackmail you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, I've heard some stories about like some guys, like they'll have a real high profile client and they'll be in college, and the next thing you know, like there'll be a box of Nike shoes at his doorstep from his advisor. Like, you just got to know, like, you can't accept anything. Can't accept any money or gifts, or like, I wish you could accept gear and stuff like that, but you can't. It's just like you're kind of on your own until you sign that contract, and unfortunately you have to pay them, and then you can start getting stuff. So until you sign, your advisor, the only thing he can do for you is talk to scouts and find out information.
Yeah, that's great information right there. And I'm excited we can do this episode because as before we came on, we got to mention that not a lot of people know how this process works. So Britton, I'll start with you. When you're 15 years old and you're getting approached, you're getting emails, and how do your parents handle it, number one? And then did you have anybody to kind of lean on to ask about how this whole process goes?
Oh, wow. I think my parents at first, like, they didn't know what it was. They had no idea. And to be honest, like, I knew what it was. Like, I had friends that had advisors and agents and stuff, but I didn't really know what they did. So I think the first time actually, like, a big company talked to me, he's like, "Hey, I'm going to come watch you play in Georgia." And I think I went like 0 for 3 with like a punch out or something. And while he was there watching, never talked to that guy again. Like, I had one bad game, and like this guy would never talk to me again. And that's kind of how it works too. Like, so at the time I had no idea. Like, I didn't even think I needed one. And then I asked one of my buddies who ended up getting drafted by the Royals, Nolan Watson, obviously, and talked to him about his. And that company was trying to represent me, and he said he really liked them, and they did a really good job for him. So that's how I ended up kind of going with him. But yeah, all the time it would happen where they'd come watch you, and you'd have one bad game, and they were gone. You never hear from them again. They ghost you. So that happens all the time.
Yeah. What about you, ZT?
Yeah, I mean, I had absolutely no idea what an advisor was. And luckily, the first guy that reached out was really professional and kind of explained everything to me. And the first couple guys I got lucky. They were kind of the better ones. And they were good about, hey, make sure you're not accepting things. And then down the road, some of those guys kind of came out of the woodwork. But like he said, I mean, being 15, 16, whatever we were, I mean, people from Wapahani don't have agents. It was kind of a new thing. It's a lot to learn, and there's really nobody out there warning you about them. I mean, the Bulls, I think, do a good job about it, or good job with it now. It's a wild ride. I advise getting it out of the way as early as you can. Find a guy that's very professional and gets you. Like, for me, my guy, he was a left-handed pitcher, so we kind of clicked right there, and he's helped me through some things. I didn't just go with some greasy business owner that knows how to handle money and doesn't know anything about baseball, but he knows how to grease you up. So just be careful what you're doing.
Absolutely. And, I always, when it comes to accepting the gifts and guys kind of doing shady stuff, I always tell guys, and this is with anything in life, but specifically the advisor situation, is, keep asking questions, like whether you're the player or the parents, ask a lot of questions. So you can usually smell bullshit the more questions that you ask. And that's one thing that I think people are kind of scared. So the guys that are listening right now, like, if you're scared to ask questions, like, there's no reason to be scared to ask any questions that they start approaching you with things. And like, for me, when guys approach me, I try to answer and be as detailed as possible for some of the players to help them out. But when you're having those conversations with guys, be upfront. I mean, be straight to the point, be blunt with them. Like, hey man, like, what's your goals? Like, what are you doing here? And like, cause you guys, like you said earlier, if they're just throwing around numbers around and money around, and, and like they show up at one game and they ghost you after a couple of Ks, which, everybody knows that I K'd a lot in my career. So at the end of the day, that doesn't mean, you got to make sure you have a guy that has the right type of mentality, that has the right type of character, guys that mesh well with you. Because it seems like both you guys are saying, like, when it comes to a character and a mindset and, approach, they had the same type of mentality you guys were. So it kind of meshed well in those situations. But let me ask you guys this, like, when it comes to red flags, like, I know you guys talked about it before with money and stuff. Is there any certain red flags that you feel like that guys should look for immediately if you kind of cut through the BS and kind of say, hey, this is a big no-no? If a guy approaches you with certain things, is there a certain red flag that you guys think that guys need to look for? And I'll start with you first, ZT.
Well, first of all, to follow up there at the end of that one, a big one about the whole being confident. Remember that this guy is kind of auditioning to work for you. You don't work for him. So don't be afraid to ask questions. But anyways, off the smelling BS, if this guy seems legit and, you go out to dinner with him and he's being a little too nice and no, I got it, I'll pay for it, nobody's going to know, I'm not going to tell anybody. I've got a deal with Under Armour or Nike. Don't worry, I'll send you some stuff. It's not a big deal. You got to watch out for that stuff. They'll play it off like they're being super nice, but they've got a plan in the back of their head.
Britton, what kind of experience have you had on that, or maybe some stories that you've had, and you can use any names you want or not use names?
He's got a good one.
yeah, just body reaction.
No, I got some good ones. I'll say one red flag is, like, leading up to the draft. Like, I know there's some guys that will tell their guys, like, hey, don't talk to a scout by yourself. Like, if they call you, tell them to contact us. And that right there, like, it seems harmless, right? Because it seems like they just, like, they want to do their job for you. But if a scout calls you and is going to ask you a question, it's going to be a pretty straightforward question, like, hey, we signed for this. At the end of the day, it's up to you to say yes or no, right? So I've had a lot of experience with the guys saying, like, hey, if Scout calls you, don't answer, text him, tell him to call us, because they're going to tell him a different thing than I want. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, they can put more money in their pocket. And out of high school, my original agency, that actually happened to me, where I was set on one number, they were set on another number. So that I get called, say, hey, will you sign for this? I said, instead of just shooting it over to them, I said, yeah, for sure. Hang up the phone. They call my advisor. They're like, hey, is he good for this? They said, no. I didn't end up getting drafted out of high school because of that right there. And I didn't find that out until a year later. I was already in my freshman year of college. Yeah, so I would say the biggest red flag is, like, when they basically tell you they're going to make a decision for you, that's not who you want to be with. So at the end of the day, the decision is yours, and it's their job to help you be able to make that decision, not make that decision for you.
I don't know, kind of off the back of that, look out for guys that are trying to push you to sign out of high school. I mean, unless you're no doubt, you're a special talent, you're definitely a first rounder out of high school. If the guy is pushing you, oh yeah, just sign for this, sign for that, doesn't matter what round, that guy's in it for the short run. He's not worried about the long run. He's not worried about your career. He just wants that paycheck up front.
Yep. No, that's great behind the scenes stuff right there that I don't think a lot of people know that goes on. So that's awesome stuff. Can you both kind of hit on, so both of you guys were approached out of high school. ZT, you were actually drafted out of high school. Britton, we just heard your story, why you weren't, unfortunately. But was there, after the draft, so ZT, let's go, when you were selected in the 11th round and chose not to sign and go to college, that talk with your advisor, how much communication was going back and forth, or was there ever any pressure for you to sign so he can kind of get money early on as opposed to going to college and not knowing what was going to happen?
Absolutely not. So my guy all along, basically that was his thing. He was like, look, if you're a first rounder, go for it. After that, here's what I think you're worth. I mean, it's your career. If you want to take less, you can take less, but I think you should go to college. And then, everything happened. We were pretty much talking every day through the draft, and, the number came down, and he's like, look, it's a gamble, but I think you're going to go to school for 3 years and you're going to be worth double or triple that. And it paid off. And now I think I'm in an organization where I'm in a better spot to move fast.
Britton kind of touched base to piggyback off that. I mean, we're all believers and we get placed in right situations at the right time. So if there was anything you could go back to that situation, was there something you wish you could have changed in the high school area?
Yeah, I mean, I think just transparency is huge in anything, right? But if I would have had a little bit of transparency of what was going on between, scouts that were just trying to do their job and then my agents at the time or advisors at the time, would have been nice to know, just so I would have had an idea. But like what I told you, it's not the full story, but I didn't find that out until, like I said, a year later, a year after the fact. So, like I had all these things leading up to the draft, like, hey, you're going to be taken here, you're going to be offered this. Are you good for that? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's go for it. And then the draft happens, and that doesn't happen. So I'm kind of sitting there like, what's going on? You know what I mean? So I would say transparency. Like if I would have had some of that, would have been good. And two, like I was an 18-year-old kid, like never been through it before, never been through the experience of the draft before. And if you haven't, you don't know like how brutal it is to be sitting there and waiting. And then all of a sudden, once you do get picked, it's just like, it just happened out of nowhere. So I never had that experience. So I'm sitting there the whole time watching 40 rounds, like locked to my TV the whole time, thinking I'm going to get picked. But I mean, it was brutal. And then once I did find that out, it was kind of like a sigh of relief, being like, okay, so I am good enough to get picked high in the drafts. I just didn't know it. So it was good. It was a good thing to go through. And I do think that everything does happen for a reason. So I was happy where I was picked this year, and by a really good organization too. So I was happy about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think everybody would agree. You guys are in great situations right now, and everything happens for a reason. And I love being able to see you guys be successful. Let's kind of roll into the college process now. So you guys are both, ZT, you went to Kentucky, and obviously Zach went to Louisville. Kind of walk us through the difference in that process, knowing you're going to go to, you're going to the professional level, like you're looking for the agency. Or you already have the agency, and that communication kind of walks through. And Britton, I'll kind of start with you. Kind of walk us through how that process went, the communication, and because I know obviously being a big left-handed hitter, all the tools that you had. There's certain organizations that probably were very interested in you. Kind of walk us through that process and how it was different in college versus high school.
So my freshman and sophomore year, really, I had nobody talking to me because they all thought I was still with an agency. So my freshman and sophomore year, I wasn't worried about it at all. I didn't care. Had nobody really calling me, emailing me. Like, it was none of that. It was kind of nice, honestly. And then I got to the Cape, and even at the start of the Cape, like nobody was saying anything. Like I was good, and I wasn't even worried about it. I was thinking the whole time, like, hey, I'm just gonna go on this draft without an advisor, because then they're just going to have to call me and I'll tell them yes or no. So that was kind of my plan. And then like halfway through the Cape year, when I was doing well, I had like probably 100 different people call me in like a week. And it kind of all happened at one time. And I pretty much, everybody that called me, I was like, no, not interested. And I pretty much narrowed it down to like two or three guys. And then one I had known since, like I said, I was 14, 15. I really, really liked the dude, knew how he was around with his other clients, and knew everything he's done for some dudes I've played with and that I know, and decided to go with him. But it was a lot less strenuous, I would say, to pick this time, because I already kind of knew what I wanted and who I was interested in, and everybody else, I just said, hey, no, sorry, I'm not going to work out. So it was easier to definitely pick. And I was more mature making the decision too, and I'd already kind of been through it, so knew what I was looking forward to.
Yeah, I think it was definitely easier in college. I mean, in high school, I was still small enough that, even leading up to the week of the draft, I was still getting calls from advisors that either didn't know or didn't care that I was with somebody else. Then freshman year of college, I got a few more calls, but not much. And then after that, I blew up enough that guys kind of knew who I was with, and it was more, I was getting contacted more by scouts than agents. So it was nice. I mean, college from the advisor side was pretty relaxing. I mean, my advisor went to a big baseball school, and was able to, I mean, he could help me through some of those things. And it was just good to have somebody, dead set. I know I've got this guy for the next 3 years. I know what I'm working towards, and I don't have to worry about finding a guy. So it was kind of more laid back than high school for me.
Yeah, and it all just goes back to how big relationships are. So both of you guys found some guys that you had a great relationship with, that you trusted, and then it all worked out like it did. So now leading up, let's go to the draft process. Both of you guys are selected. What is the role of the advisor now that you're now a professional baseball player? And ZT, you can start us up.
So now, I mean, he handles, like, he'll talk to everywhere from like the GM down to minor league coordinators, all that stuff. Like I said, he's got some guys in other orgs. So like this time of year, I'll say, hey, he won't even tell me which org. He'll be like, hey, this big league pitching coach is doing this, or this org is sending out this. He'll just kind of show me, maybe we should try blending like some of this here with that and kind of see how your body reacts. And then, I mean, during the season, if you're struggling, he'll give you a call like, hey, what's going on? Or, he'll come meet with me a couple times a season, just to stop in, just to see how things are going, see how I'm throwing. Anytime I need anything, I just shoot him a text and it's in the mail the next day. Bats, gloves, balls, gear, bands, anything. He's kind of like your personal assistant once you get to pro ball.
What about you, Britton?
Yeah, I was going to kind of say the same thing. Like, just throughout the organization, just like finding information out, kind of like what everybody else is doing in the offseason, pretty much just like ZT said. But right now for me has been like a lot of card deals. So he's scheduling like a lot of card deals and stuff like that where I just sign cards. And we're working on like getting a couple bat deals. So I'm sampling bats here and there, and he's getting bats for me. So yeah, pretty much just gear and kind of finding out information from your organization and other guys' organization too. And pretty much just giving you as much information as he can. So yeah, like ZT said, he's pretty much your personal assistant.
That's awesome. And that's going to be really good for guys to understand, the resources that they're going to have once they get to that level, if they're blessed enough to get to that level, and understanding what the role is. And, ZT, that's awesome that it was kind of a laid back process for you, being able to rely on that guy that you trusted and known. So you can just focus on doing you. And that's kind of what I want to venture into a little bit right now. I will say that, obviously, running LT and the business that I run and training guys, and also with the Bulls guys, once guys start blowing up, you see, instructors or coaches or advisors, they just start coming out of nowhere, which you guys know. And they're like, hey, you need to come train in my program. Hey, you need to do this program. Hey, whatever you've been doing, it's got you where you're at. Now you got to get to this next level. And Britton, I'll kind of start with you. There's a couple of guys specifically the last few years that's in my mind right now. I obviously won't use their names, but they're doing stuff. It's getting them better. They're developing. Obviously, they're doing well. Otherwise, people wouldn't be calling them. What's kind of your advice or your experience with guys and pressuring from the outside of saying like, hey, you need to come do my program. You need to come hit with me. I'm the man. People that you train with suck. You're going to suck if you don't do this. Kind of putting things in your head like. And obviously, guys are going to put too much pressure in. They're going to try to manipulate the situation. And we all know instructors and guys that are like that, hey, Zach Britton's doing really well. I need to put my name on that. I need to stamp my name on this dude.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've had a couple guys been like, hey, come out here to so-and-so. And we got whoever hitting out here. And I'm just like, well, I got here hitting in my basement by myself. So, like, I don't really need your help. That's kind of how I put it, like, feel like.
Yeah.
Like if it's going to make me better, then like, no doubt I'm going to do it. But if it's somebody just trying to be like, hey, we have so-and-so, we have this many draft picks, we have this many guys who signed for this amount of money, like in here hitting every day. Like, that's not what I'm about. Like I'm about just getting my work in, doing what I need to do. And of course, learning and working with really good players. I'm all about that, but that's what I do all the time when I'm back home, and I make a 45-minute drive to go hit where I always hit. So yeah, I've actually had some people contact me and be like, hey, come out here and hit with so-and-so. And I'm like, no, I'm not interested at all. So
ZT, what you got, man?
I really wasn't it hadn't been quite that bad. I mean, in college, I feel like there was more of that. It was like, hey, when you're home for Christmas, you should come here or fly out to here or do this, do that. We've got this many draft picks, blah, blah, blah. And now it's kind of settled down. But I mean, I've been doing pretty much the same thing since middle school. Been going to the same barn. Last year I went back to school, so I had guys there to work out with. I had facilities to use, but really haven't had people bug me. Hey, you should come do this. You should come take pictures here so we can post. And I haven't really had to deal with any of that in pro ball.
Yeah, and with you guys in the confidence levels, I will say this, and this is something that young guys don't know, because I've been asked that question before, like, hey, what's the next step in the process? Like, what should I do here? Should I be training with this, Royals guy or this guy or that guy? And I think what's most important to take away from this is, obviously with you guys, you know yourselves, you know what got you where you're at. And part of that mentality, like Zach, you're saying, hey, I got hitting in my basement, that's a tough, SOB, like mental toughness mentality. Like, I'm doing something down here that most guys won't. And last time we had you on the podcast, ZT, you're talking about going to your high school, throwing into a net. There's certain mentalities that guys have to get to a certain level. And there's a reason why you two are at your level, not only because of your talent, but you understand your body, you understand the mentality, you understand the process of what you need to do. You're not going to let somebody from the outside, try to screw that up or mess with your mentality or say, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. You know your process, but also you're willing to learn. And I remember both you guys, when we had both you guys on, you're constantly wanting to learn. So you listen to people, you listen to, hey, what if this is going to make me better? I'm going to try this out, and then take what really helps you, and then throw the other crap out the window. And so I think that's sound advice, and that's awesome to hear both you guys. And I expected to hear that in your guys' replies, but I'm really glad that you guys are being able to speak to people that are possibly listening to this and maybe hearing from people on the outside. Because at the end of the day, you got to know yourself, and you got to be putting in the work that got you where you are. Because ultimately, guys in the big leagues, like, some guys are thinking they need to change stuff up all the time, which you adapt or die, but you got to remember what made you who you are and what made you your strengths.
Yeah. I mean, to kind of follow up on that. I mean, there's guys, like he said, that'll want you to come, they're wanting you to come pay thousands to come work out with them in their boutique facilities or whatever. And I've for me, it's like, I'm looking online, I'm trying to get, ideas to learn new things to try, but I'm not out there buying the snake oil. Like this year I invested more in buying more weight equipment for my own weight room. I don't need to go work out at this fancy place on the beach somewhere or something. Mm-hmm. It was 30 degrees when I walked into the weight room this morning, and to me, I think that makes me better than if I went down to some fancy place in Florida where they'll post pictures of me on Instagram with big leaguers and make me look cool.
Hell yeah, baby. 30 degrees all day, baby.
So ZT, you're not out there at 6 a.m. putting selfies up saying you're grinding?
Hell no.
Hey, shirt is off. He's got some tats. He's like, "What's up, brah? Look at me grinding."
You don't want to see me with my shirt off.
Oh man, that is awesome. But no, it's great stuff, because my favorite quote, like that Mike Trout talked about that he learned from Torrey Hunter, was just do what got you there. And both of you guys are very successful. You got there for a reason, and they drafted you guys for a reason. So be wary of these coaches out there that are trying to make a stamp or a trainer or anything like that. So that's great advice for our listeners to just understand, be who you are. Can we kind of transition over to, all right, so that junior year, everybody knows the big draft year for college players. What would be some advice, Britton, to players that don't put too much pressure on yourself and try to go out and hit 30 home runs if you've only ever hit 5 in your whole career?
Yeah. I would say, yeah, it's just another, like, every time you step out on the field, it's just another game. That's what I would say. But kind of leading up to your junior year, it's like the whole, how do I say this? It's like the whole portfolio, like everything that you've done before that doesn't matter. Like my freshman year, I had 240. My sophomore year, I hit like 290 with 5 home runs. Like, it wasn't standout by any means, but it was good. Wasn't as good as I was capable of. I went to the Cape and then did well. And then in the fall, I did really well. So I knew that nothing else mattered except the last, 8 months of me playing. That's what guys were going to evaluate me off of. They're not going to evaluate me from my freshman year to my sophomore year. No, they're going to see how much I got better because I was able to play finally. But they're going to look at my last eight months and be like, okay, what has he done lately? So that's the mindset I had. So every day I stepped on the field, I was just trying to embarrass everybody out there. Like I was literally trying to go up to the plate every time and hit 4 balls as hard as I could and literally embarrass the other team. Like that's what my mindset was. Because one, that's just kind of how my mind works. But 2, I was pissed off because like it was the first time in 3 years I was able to play every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to show everybody that didn't let me play or kind of, not slept on me, but kind of underrated me. I was trying to show them like, hey, this dude's the best guy on the team, like one of the best hitters around. So that's what I was trying to show everybody. And I wish we would have got a full season so I continued to do that. But no, it worked out. But I would just say, like, remember, it doesn't matter what you did in the past. It matters what you do every day. And if you keep that mindset, I think it's a lot easier to kind of take that pressure off your shoulders.
Good stuff. What about you, ZT?
To me, I mean, it was a culmination of everything I had ever worked towards. So, I mean, the last, realistically, like 7 years leading up to that, it was all the work that I had put in. So just sit back and, I mean, enjoy it. Enjoy your last year of college. Still work your ass off, especially in the fall. But then you get to the spring, you don't need to put more pressure on yourself. There's plenty of pressure there. Just enjoy it. Have fun. I mean, you know how I compete. So, I would work my tail off all week leading up to that start, but then just kind of flip that switch when that day came. And I didn't even think about it. It was just like he said, I'm going out there trying to kill somebody. I don't really care who's in the box. I'm going to beat them, but I'm not going to worry about counting scouts in the stands or whipping my neck around to see how hard that fastball was, because it really doesn't matter. I mean, just sit back and enjoy your junior year and compete your ass off.
Yeah.
So when you two guys are in the big leagues and face each other, who's going to win? Because one wants to embarrass one while the other wants to kill the other. That's must-watch TV.
Absolutely.
We'll just have to wait and see.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I wait and see. Hopefully, we see it in the next year or so. That'd be awesome. I will say this though, and I really like both of you guys' mentalities right there. And I'm gonna kind of do an analogy here. I was just watching The Last Dance. Was it like 6 months ago? Well, when the COVID BS was all going on. So I will say the whole mental process of Michael Jordan, where he would create a chip on his shoulder and he would create situations inside of his head, like, and both of you guys just said the same thing. Like, you're trying to kill the other team. You're trying to take this mentality of Britton, you're trying to hit 4 baseballs as hard as you can. ZT, you're trying to pitch, you're trying to light and just embarrass guys at the plate. There's a certain mentality, like when guys put pressure on themselves, because this is something I've just recently had a couple conversations with guys about, and I can just tell by their conversation how they're responding to things, that they're thinking way too much about something that may or may not happen, or something like, especially next year with all the COVID stuff. And, what I mean about COVID BS is, you guys ending your season early. A lot of seniors in high school got cheated out of their seasons, which I feel absolutely horrible for. And now we're in a situation where next year's draft, and they're talking about making the draft shorter every year. You got 2 groups of seniors coming in. You got freshmen coming in that are battling for scholarships. This is going to be an overloaded draft, and it's going to be absolutely packed. And for guys to sit here and worry about putting pressure on things they cannot control, and you guys had the right mentality. It's like, hey, bust your ass every single day, show up, wanting to embarrass the other team, have that chip in your shoulder, create whatever mindset you need to create. That's the mindset you need to create day in and day out. And I think with what you guys were just mentioning, and that really stands out to me. And so guys that are listening, you need to, instead of just, listening and hearing it and letting go in one ear and out the other, you need to take this in. But let me kind of approach this next part. Basically, I want to talk about, and we'll kind of veer off into this. Now that you guys, ZT, obviously you've been in, professionals a little bit longer than Britton. And I'll start with you, ZT. Like we talked about a little bit before we hopped on. What's your process now? We're in the middle of December. Obviously, you're going to try to get your arm in shape. You just mentioned before is your second time playing catch. Can you break us down a little bit how you're going to break in and get your arm ready for season?
Yeah, so I've really slowed it down more than I ever have. I mean, last year, about this, maybe a little before this time of year, I found out I was going to Instructs. I knew there was a good chance of maybe big league camp. So my mindset was to be ahead of our throwing schedule, be ahead of what everybody was saying, so that I was game ready for instructs in January when I really didn't need to be. I was kind of putting that pressure on myself to show up in February at big league camp and try to steal a spot, try to be more ready than any of the other guys, look sharper. And going into this year, the big thing that's even been preached by the org is like, start later, take your time, because we still don't know how things are going to play out. So we don't want you starting and stopping. So this year I'm trying to be just on pace with everybody headed into camp. I don't need to be ready to throw a 7-inning game on January 1st. So, touching a ball for the second time today, literally just playing catch for 10 or 15 minutes, leading into, I might start getting off a mound first week of January, probably second week. Really taking my time. I know for college and maybe even high school guys, you got to start a little bit sooner just because of when your season starts. But I mean, for us, we have all of spring training. They're talking like minor league camp might not even start till April.
Wow.
Just making sure that I'm healthy and I feel good headed into camp. I'm not already starting to drag because, I've thrown 30 bullpens by the end of January. There's just no need for it. So I'm definitely more relaxed heading into my second year than I was my first.
It's good stuff. Britton, kind of walk us through your process, because I know obviously you and your dad have hit all growing up, and you guys have a routine, and you have a routine that you have now. Kind of walk us through what you're doing this off season.
Yeah, so kind of like ZT said, I'm not trying to be dragging when I get to spring training, because I've hit 500 balls every day. So right now it's I hit 2-3 days a week, and it's probably half the swings I usually do, but it's just to stay sharp and not lose anything. But really, more than anything, I've just been working out more, running a couple times a week just to stay in shape, and but lifting a lot and getting as strong as I can, because I know when that season hits, I'm going to end up losing 10, 15 pounds throughout the year. And I just want to be in as best shape as I can be and running all the time. And I just started throwing actually 3 weeks ago. And like he said, it's kind of just been light catch. And as I keep throwing, throw twice a week, as I keep throwing, I'll start working back and doing it more frequently and getting in the long toss probably here in the next 2-3 weeks. So, yeah.
Good stuff, man.
This day and time now, an agent almost maybe more popular and more affirmative than ever, just to kind of keep you guys in the loop on what exactly is going on. So, Britt, with that being said, I think it's cool that you're able to just focus on your baseball while he handles all the other stuff about it. What is the latest that your agent is hearing? And then ZT, to follow up with it, is there any information out there that y'all have heard of going into the season?
Yeah, well, I've heard straight from the organization, they don't know where we're going to be at yet, when we're going to have spring training. So I don't think anybody really knows. I think it will probably get pushed back, I'm assuming, until big leaguers get out of the complex. Then I think minor league spring training will happen, but I don't think anyone knows yet. I mean, I don't know. So I don't know if anybody else knows.
Yeah, I mean, not having winter meetings didn't help any.
Yeah.
But I've heard everything from big league camp will be normal, minor league camp getting pushed back. Had a call where, they were kind of saying, yeah, leading into camp, you should come down to Florida early, get in with the guys, get in with the coaching staff, be there early. I was like, well, is it open? And he's like, nah. I was like, well, when is it going to open? Well, we don't really know when things are going to open. So everybody's still in limbo. I mean, we haven't even announced if we're having instructs yet. No official word on when camp's going to be. I've even heard from some other orgs that, it might be like summer camp again, where the big leaguers just go to their home city. So it's all up in the air.
Yeah, it's just a tough process all in all. But I mean, you guys have the right mentality of just kind of, gradually blending and getting yourself ready slowly and getting yourself prepared. So that way, no matter what, if you get the call, hey, you got to be here in 2 weeks, you're ready to rock and roll. Kind of before we close out, guys, is there anything that you feel that we haven't touched on that you guys kind of want to give advice for? Kind of guys that possibly have that chance of getting drafted out of high school, or the guys even in the college level, what's your advice to them, whether it's from the pressure standpoint from controlling the things that you can control, you know, and I'll kind of start with you, Britton, kind of like, what's your number one advice for guys in this process?
So I got two answers to that. One, for picking an advisor, picking an agent. Like I said before, you know, pick a guy you can trust, pick a guy you have faith that he's going to fight for you. He's not just going to try to recruit the top echelon players that should go really high in the draft. He's trying to get guys that, you know, he sees potential in and that he's going to fight for. And two, you know, leading up to the draft, whether it be your senior year and in high school or junior year in college, it's way less about how you do. I want to stress that. Like, it's not, you're not going to go 3 for 4 every game. But a scout's there because he knows you have potential and you have some skills, but he wants to see you fail too. I'm not saying go up there and try to fail, but he wants to see you fail. When you go 1 for 4 or 0 for 4, like, he wants to see how you go out and run out on defense and play. He wants to see how you interact with your teammates. Because when a scout's there to watch you, it's way less about what you do because he already knows you can play, or else he wouldn't be there. He wants to see how you interact with your teammates and how you respond to failure. So if you look at it that way, it's there's no pressure, right? It's just be a good person, play your ass off. And if it works out, then it works out. And if it doesn't, go get better for 3 years at college and get a degree while you're at it. So I would say that don't put any pressure on yourself. Just go out there and play the game you love to play. And if it works out and they see what they like and, you know, you agree on terms, and then it'll happen. But there's so much that goes into it, just whether you can play or you can't. So I wouldn't put any pressure on yourself.
That's good advice. Yeah, it's a win-win mentality when you take that approach to it, for sure. You know, worst case scenario, you're going to college. ZT, kind of, what's your number one piece of advice, guys listening right now, or something maybe we haven't touched on?
First of all, I want to piggyback off that because that is huge. I mean, every scout you talk to talks about, you know, we're interested because, I mean, we know what you're capable of, but we want to see how you fail, how you handle failure. One that I still remember to this day, playing for the Bulls in fall ball, and we were actually playing at Louisville. And as you know, I ended up trying to be a two-way guy. I remember the entire Kentucky staff was there that day, and I think I punched out my first 3 at bats and then roped a double my 4th AB. And, you know, I'm fucking steaming because I'm 1 for 4, had a hat trick.
Yeah.
Get out. And the very first thing they mentioned was, we love the way you bounced back from a hat trick and rope a double. You stayed focused. We like the way you fail. So, you know, don't have a meltdown when you punch out. It's part of the game. But then, you know, kind of the biggest thing I want guys to kind of take away from all this is, especially for high schoolers, you know, I was one of those guys in high school where it was like, I want to be considered one of those elite guys. So if I'm not signing out of high school, like, I was a failure, like I didn't accomplish my goal. And really my first fall on campus was miserable. I wish I would have signed, and I'm so glad I didn't, looking back. I mean, college is not a bad thing. You know, the friends you make, the life experiences, the baseball experiences, and then in the long run, it got me paid. I mean, it put me in a way better place to succeed. I'm on a way faster track to the bigs than I would have been if, you know, I'm starting out playing rookie ball in the 100-degree heat in Florida somewhere with a bunch of 15-year-old Dominicans. You know, I've been around. I mean, shoot, I got to pick the brain of guys like Adam Wainwright, Jack Flaherty this year. I don't know if that would have happened if I would have signed out of high school.
Yeah, and one thing we talk about on here is everybody has their own path. And I think so many people get so caught up into this guy's going to this school, and they try to compare themselves to each other. And we talk about it all the time on here, is just trust your system, trust your schools. Your abilities may lead you to a D2, a junior college, whatever it is, it can lead to opportunity. So I'm glad that we kind of got the touch there at the end, because I was able to be around our Louisiana Knights team, the 21 class, and I think there was 21 or 22 D1 commits. And being around them, all they kept talking about was getting ready to, so excited to get to college. And one piece of advice I told them, I was like, it's great and everything, but enjoy the heck out of high school, man. So many guys live that senior year so ready to get to that Division I campus and get to the dorms and get to the parties and the facilities and all that stuff, that I think they kind of miss out on the workouts that you're doing in high school, the team practices. So I challenged them really to go as hard as you can, every practice, every workout, every game, just to really truly enjoy it. And then at the end of the day, you can look back knowing you gave it your all and actually enjoyed playing in the moment versus always looking to what's my future looking like. So I'm glad that you guys were able to cover that right there at the end. That's good advice.
Yeah, and I was actually one of those guys when I was in college, and that, Adam, I'm glad you touched on that. We've talked about it before. I was like, well, this is just a place I'm going to be until I go play pro ball. I'm going to be here, and I kind of missed out on some things mentality wise, and I got hurt, and God sent me in a completely different path of what I was going to do, and I feel like today, and kind of smacked me in the head, like my job is to help young men, help them develop, and help guys in the process, and I think that's what I was put here in the world to do. But both of you guys, I'm really glad you touched on the mental toughness part of that. And I think that's something that's missed is people see that, all the glory and all the, and ZT, we talked about this on your podcast, on people on social media, talking about the good things and, hey, I'm hitting these bombs, I'm throwing this 98 mile an hour fastball. But at the end of the day, like when you get to the level you guys are at, everybody's talented. Everybody's next level, world class, whatever you want to call it. And the guys that rise to the top are the ones that have that mental fortitude to go through those days when you struggle, to understand that struggle is a part of the process. Because, it's just like guys in hitting lessons or pitching lessons, they start struggling and maybe they start getting upset. And I look at them and go, well, dude, you might as well quit. You suck today. So it might as well be over. And they kind of sit back like, what the hell? Like, and I'm being sarcastic, but it's like, you're going to go through bumps in the road. It's going to be ups and downs. It's going to be a roller coaster. But if you can have, to focus on the prize, to focus on your goals and know your why and know what you're doing, it completely changes the game. Like failure doesn't affect you. It's just the road that you're traveling. And I really appreciate you guys. And especially I appreciate you guys coming on. I love you guys. Obviously you guys know that. And I don't get to talk to you guys as much as I want to, because obviously we're all busy. But I'm really glad you guys got to hop on here and talk and got to see ZT's pretty face again. So and I get to enjoy that.
I was gonna tack something on, but now you're attacking me, so I don't know. but no, to go with what you just said, one of the guys in our rotation I got to sit down with this spring was telling me about. He was like, don't worry about going out there and throwing 7 shutty every day, because you're gonna put that pressure on yourself, and you're not gonna be able to do it. He was like, the one thing that got me to the bigs. He was like, I never missed a minor league start. And he was like, he played at every level, and he was like, I was never the best guy in our rotation, but I did the same exact thing every week. He was like, I never went out and threw a CG or threw a shutout or anything, but they always knew what they were getting out of me. And that's what gets you paid. That's what gets you to the show. Just be consistent. Do the same thing.
Yeah, master the mundane. That's great advice, man. Do the same thing day in and day out. Britton, you got anything else to hop in before we end out?
No, I really like what ZT just said, though, because I was going to throw in the back of it, like, the most talented guys are usually not the ones that end up in the big leagues, like Trout and Harper and Tatis. Like, yeah, those guys are like superstars. They're up here. Bellinger, same thing. Like, those guys are obviously like, they're born to play baseball on a national stage. Like, they're freaks. But you look at a big league roster, there's all-stars that are not the most talented guys coming up. Like, but those guys are the guys who come every day. They grind it out. They do their routine every single day, and they're really, really good teammates. They may not be the highest draft picks or, the sexy picks out of high school or anything like that. But like a guy I know, like Cole Calhoun, who's a later round pick, and that dude he signed a multi-year contract for over $10 million last year. The guy was never the best player on his team, but he grinds and he does the same thing every day, and a really good teammate too. So that's what I wanted to say. The best guys are not always the ones that make it. You just have to be a complete player who shows up every day and be a really good teammate too.
Yep, there's more to it than just talent. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I appreciate you guys hopping on here. And for the listeners, if you guys enjoyed this, man, please leave that 5-star review. These guys really put out a lot of information out there that's not out there. ZT's like, hey, don't leave that 5-star review, man. Screw these guys. Yeah, but hey, again, the process of this is it's a long process. Again, you guys being able to share your stories on here, I think is really valuable for guys that are listening right here, and we appreciate it, man. But guys that are listening, until next time, we'll see you guys later.